Well, after our little detour into the depths of hell, let's talk about a different kind of hell. Skarner. Throughout the last few days, we got a lot of news to talk about. From the new Skarner updates to the fact that Riot tripled the production of TFT, to Valve trying to tackle Valorant. With all of these news to talk about, we need to cover them quickly, so I'm going without a script. Brace yourselves. And today we are talking about the fact that Riot released yet another one of their League of Legends updates. I believe this is the third time they did one of these, and I have to say, I still love the format. These are quick, they go straight to the point, and most of all, they are honest. So when it comes to transparency, these updates are still awesome. Anyway, this time they confirmed that yes, League will most likely be getting less new champions. Which by now you may know, a lot of people are happy about. New champions are simply not really the force that is driving new players into the game anymore. So instead there is a bigger focus on the mid-scope updates for older champions. Or champions who just need it. After the latest Yuumi update, it was confirmed that Rel will most likely be next, followed by Nico with her new ability to transform into anything. And even now, everyone still agrees that Riot should totally make a prop hunt game mode using that new ability. But they also confirmed that Ivern will also be getting an update and they will try to find him a new way to use Daisy. Everything else will probably stay very similar. After this, they confirmed that the Skarner update will most likely be delayed. That's not really a surprise when it comes to VGUs. And it's happening for one big reason. Skarner is just one massive mesh of themes. There is the entire Brackern history, he is also dealing with crystals, and he has the scorpion design. That's kinda where the talk about him ends. Then they announced that they released a special post talking about the new Skarner VGU, which means that we're gonna talk about that in just a second. But before that, let's quickly go through the rest of the update. When it comes to skins, they confirmed that they are looking into brand new skin lines. And they indeed have plans for bigger skin lines for their bigger events. One of these is aimed for MSI and the other one is planned for the big summer event. They also revealed that some of the Wild Rift skin ports are planned to be released on League PC in July. Those would be Star Guardian Seraphine, Senna and Orianna. Next, they confirmed that they are reworking the Blue Essence Emporium and it should release during the summer. At first, it should be very similar, but the tech behind it should be very different. So it seems like maybe they are preparing the Blue Essence Emporium to become a rotating shop, kind of like what many other games have. But who knows what they may end up doing with it. After this, they introduce a writer whom we have not seen before, Pew Pew Lasers. He is League's game director and he is focusing on listening to the players and looking for what they wanna see in the game. Be it an opinion of a master level player or an ARAM enjoyer. So when it comes to our complaints about not enough casual play, this person probably knows about it. And he even mentions that they recognize that they need to change how League is going because change is good. Which I assume means they are gonna start doing stuff for the casual players. And one of the results of that is quick play. He revealed that blind pick is being played less and less. Which kinda makes sense because again, Riot has been supporting the ranked modes more and more over the years. So these days, draft just became a standard. And Quick Play will try to tackle this problem with a more of a casual approach. In Quick Play, you choose your favorite champion, you choose your favorite role, and in the game, you are guaranteed to get at least one of these. The queue will pop, either your role or the champion will be locked in, and you hop straight into a game. Everything should be quick, that's why it's called Quick Play. But if you ask me, if the queue is not quick, the game mode might crumble quickly. For the last piece of news, which wasn't actually even in this video, from some data mining we know that something is planned for April Fools. We don't really know what it's gonna be, but we know it might be related to tomatoes, whatever that's gonna be. But that's it for the entire update, so now back to the core of this video. Skarner. The post was introduced with this amazing image. And when you realize that there are people in the foreground and you learn how big Skarner actually is, things get even cooler. At the beginning they lay out the goals for Skarner's rework. It quickly became obvious that this would have to be a bigger rework, that's why all the delays. It quickly became obvious that this is gonna be a bigger rework, that's why all the delays. And according to Riot, it is certainly more challenging than anticipated. And that's because, statistically, nothing about Skarner is great. All the surveys showed them that Skarner has some of the lowest scores when it comes to thematic enjoyment. In fact, he scored the lowest of all champions in the following categories. Visual appeal, one of your favorite champions. I like this champion's personal style. Visual fit with character. Clear understanding of the character. But that's not all, he also scored bottom 4 in the following categories. Emotions for the champion. Enjoying his power fantasy. Consistent champion story. A hero or a side character. Interested in overall theme. But surprisingly, Skarner was not at the bottom of familiarity with the story. Personally, I believe that's because Skarner was involved in 2 big moments. When Seraphine was released, she was connected to Skarner. And one of her big problems was that she completely ignored the lore of the Breckern. But also, when Arcane was released, when people started talking about the core lore of Hextech, everyone got to learn about the Breckern. So I'm actually not surprised about this. Also, apparently, Skarner was not at the bottom of "Would I romance this champion" category, which I'm afraid to ask why Riot is tracking this one. But also, when it comes to the overall popularity across all regions, simply said, Skarner is the least popular in all categories. And according to Riot, there may be several reasons why that's happening. First of all, monsters are simply less popular than humanoids. Throughout the last few years, this is something that was talked about a lot. But also, scorpions don't really have any iconic features. When asked about what is good about Skarner, 90% said his ultimate, and the rest of the people said he's a scorpion. There was nothing else. And lastly, the entire crystal theme is just clunky. Crystals are seen as beautiful and magical, but scorpions are badass and menacing. So these 2 themes don't really play off of each other. So with these 3 pillars laid out, Riot turned towards a new direction. They started leaning into his badass bestial fantasy, while also keeping him highly intelligent. They looked over every region to see if Skarner still fits in. And after looking at the new direction, they realized Skarner could have a better home. And since he is a giant scorpion connected to Earth, they moved him into Ishtal. Which sounds scary, but trust me, Ishtal needs any kind of new lore. But using the Breckern for this is gonna be very dangerous. From what we've learned in this post, they will keep the Breckern as a powerful species from the forgotten history of Runeterra. The Breckern will also be turned into Runeterra's very first Earth Elementalists. They will be the ones who taught the people of Runeterra how to use their elemental magic. Which of course means that the Breckern will date back to pre-civilization. Which also means that the Breckern will be a species revered in Ishtal. And they will have a rich history in this region. Apparently in modern Ishtal, the Breckern keep to themselves, as they try to avoid human affairs, but Skarner will be used to break that. And he will be used in the central Ishtali stories. That's kinda the baseline we got for the new Breckern story. Obviously, with the entire earthy theme, it actually works. And Ishtal could really use a bump up with its story. But there is the looming threat of a lot of retcons, and we'll talk about that at the end of the video. But now, let's talk about the visuals. For the visuals, they had 3 key points. Obviously, it's a scorpion. Obviously, there are crystals. That's why he's the crystal scorpion, or at least was. And he's a good aligned heroic archetype. When it comes to being a scorpion, scorpions are generally a good design. They are insectoids that look kinda alien, so Riot is keeping it. The crystals could theoretically work, but in Skarner's case they weren't memorable enough. So moving forward, focusing on the crystals wasn't really the right approach. He was also confirmed to be a lawful neutral character that is deeply intelligent. They compared him to King Kong. Someone who doesn't kill without a reason, but someone who is gonna protect his territory. In this image, we also got to see his proper size. I think Malphite is gonna have a new friend. And overall, they tried to work with all kinds of different approaches. From Void Spawn to Hextech Empowered. But the elemental approach simply seemed to work the best. And I have to say, thematically, it works for Skarner and it works for the Brecker. And yes, Skarner will most likely have 3 stingers now. Later, they also talk about the fact that scorpions don't really have any exciting traits. Galio was the anti-magic stone gargoyle colossus. Fiddlesticks was the spooky scarecrow. Well, that's an understatement. And Skarner was the lonely crystal scorpion. So, as they were trying his new gameplay, they found 4 keywords that could potentially work, but in the end they didn't. One of them was Venom. I'm pretty sure every scorpion has that. This would turn a lot of his kit into a bunch of dots. But because dots in League can turn toxic very quickly, they would have to give Skarner special new UI that would show you how much his dots are ticking for. And yes, in the post they said that they are aware of the fact that some champions will need this in the future, but Skarner simply wasn't the first one who should tackle this. For his second kit, they tried Hextech Empowerment. This would give him a new Hextech resource that could make him explode. Which sounds cool, but it quickly turned Skarner into something that did not feel like Skarner. The third kit they tried was Skarnerlings. Basically, as he would be rebuilding the Breckern, he would be sending them into battle. However, this would be approaching the cute follower territory, which quite a few champions, including Melio, already do. And lastly, the fourth kit was Carapace. He would essentially switch his Carapace, which means switching forms to change his gameplay. Kinda like Udyr, even though the post never mentions it. But just like Udyr, they mentioned that the problem is skins. I can't believe they were happy about the fact that Udyr won't have to have bazillion new models, and then immediately after that they think about Skarner having the exact same problem. But yes, Skarner already has a lot of skins, this would be horrifying. Also, apparently, this would make him feel a lot closer to something like a Voidborn, which are constantly changing and adapting. So apparently none of these really worked, which made me sad because I really liked the idea with Venom. And so they started centering his new kit around his ultimate. But even though his ultimate was iconic, it didn't feel that impactful. So they made it AoE. Yes, Skarner can actually pull in the entire enemy team. Which sounds amazing until you realize that he can also grab the tank into the middle of your team. The rest of his kit should give him more things to do while he's dragging the enemy into your team. Which is followed by nothing. That's literally where the post just cuts off. So in reality, we learned nothing about his new gameplay. So, to summarize, Riot is turning the Crystal Scorpion into an earthy Scorpion. Unfortunately, this means that they may have to retcon the origins of Hextech, which is sad because those origins were really good. Hextech previously came from the Kalamanda region in northern Shurima, and specifically, Hextech gems were literally carved from the dead bodies of the Breckern, or sometimes alive Breckern. But that's not where the Breckern are now. Now they are somewhere around Ishtal, which means that maybe the Hextech gems still come from the Breckern. Maybe they don't have to retcon how they work, but they are definitely changing where they are from. And I have to say, Riot kinda has to keep the Hextech gems part of the Breckern history. Because if you get rid of that lore, the stories of a lot of other champions will start to break. For example, a lot of Camille's backstory is relying on the fact that her family was harvesting these crystals in Shurima. So if that gets retconned, I have no idea what's gonna happen to Camille. But to be honest, I have to say that a lot of this seems to be preparations for Arcane. Because the Breckern were never ever mentioned anywhere in the entirety of Arcane, maybe they are getting ready for the fact that Arcane will become fully canon. Because in case you don't know, there are differences between the core universe and the Arcane universe. And making the entirety of Arcane canon is good. I would argue that the stories of all the main characters is better than what we got in the core universe. But some other characters are still not getting what they deserve. For example, Singed is miles better in the core universe compared to what's happening in Arcane. But who knows, maybe that will be fixed in Arcane 2 with the entire Warwick storyline. But back to Skarner. Overall, from what we've learned, everything looks great on paper. But a lot of the core values are still a bit of a mystery. Seeing how Skarner will be essentially an earth-bending mage, I would expect some rock throws and rock-breaking abilities. And when it comes to his lore, we can just pray and see if Riot can pull off all the retcons successfully. Which of course means we may forget, but we will never forgive. See, that's not even the end joke of this video. The joke is the fact that Nicky Boy made a Skarner video before me.